This episode of Total Network Operations is sponsored by Meter, the company building better networks. Meter delivers full-stack networking infrastructure, wired, wireless, and cellular, to leading enterprises. They design the hardware and software, manage deployments, and run support, providing a single integrated solution that scales. You can go to meter.com/tnops to book a demo. That's meter.com/TNOPS. You should try it. And now, on with the show. Welcome to Total Network Operations, the show that's dedicated to all you network operators who light up the fibers and deliver the packets and look at the wavelengths and all other stuff we're going to talk about today. Today is another Total Network Operations on the road, and I'm here at Light River in Holmdel, New Jersey, in a very historic location. And no, I'm not talking about TV shows. This is the former site of one of the early Bell Labs facilities, and there's a lot of history that happened here, and it's very cool to be here talking about this with this group today. We have a very different show for you today. We're talking with a vendor, but this is not a sponsored show. I've been interested in Light River for years and what they're doing in automation for optical and kind of bridging the gap between IP and optical. We're going to talk a lot about that today. We have a large group here. I'm going to ask the ringleader, Jim Brinksma, to give a brief introduction. And we'll go around the room and just give your name and a brief, here's what I do at Light River. So Jim, let's start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for coming out and joining us. Jim Brinksma, got about 25 years of experience spanning Department of Defense, technology startups, financial services, and telecom. I'm currently the SVP of Light River Software. And today I brought the team out. With us today, you're going to have our developers who are focused on building the products that we leverage for the folks that are listening in today. You have our AI, ML engineers, you've got our SecOps, you have QA, our product owners, and more. So we're really excited to, be chatting with you.
Cool. Let's go around the room real quick.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Massey. I've got 25 years of optical experience in the industry. I started with a tier 1 telco in the operations space, tech support for them. And I've been with Light River now for over 17 years. Moved through many different titles from support to sales engineering. And now I'm the product owner and the lead of the development team for Netflix.
Morning, Scott. Hi, I'm Ken Stinkyu. I have many years' experience in the telecom, both in the services and transport spaces. I holding a variety of leadership and technical roles, and right now I am developing Light River Software's external ecosystem.
Good morning. My name is Shevin Patel. I'm a recent Rutgers graduate. I studied computer science and economics there. I was active in AIML research and federated learning, and currently I'm here as an AIML engineer.
Hello, Travis Cotty, QA, quality assurance. I'm doing that for a long time, test lots of different stuff, and now working with the engineering team here at Light River, just making sure everything works.
Hey everyone, Dan Rose, lifelong tech enthusiast. I've been at Light River for 7 years, currently leading a backend and AI team. My background in automation ranges from optical service routing and provisioning to my latest obsession with AI-assisted software engineering.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear about that for sure. Last but not least,
hey, thanks for having me. I'm Nick Zaslavsky. I'm the senior DevSecOps engineer on the team. My day-to-day works around DevOps, security, compliance, and all the things that fall in between.
Very cool. Welcome. I'm really, really glad to be here with y'all today. Jim, let's back up. Tell us a little bit about Light River. You're intentionally multi-vendor in the optical space. Flesh that out for our listeners, please.
Yeah, sure. So Light River was founded in 1998. It's a portfolio company of Grain Management, which is like a leading global investment firm that's focused on the telecom sector. We've got a whole portfolio of services and software that are really focused on automation, optimization, and simplification of multi-layer, multi-vendor, and multi-generation networking. From a multi-layer perspective, when we talk about that, we're really talking about it from like the OSI model perspective. So anything from layer 3 and below. So we're talking about IP, Ethernet, DWDM, OTN, et cetera, things along those lines. And again, in that space, there's a whole slew of vendors. So whether we work with and support folks like the Cienas and the Ciscos, Infineras, et cetera, of the world. And when we say multi-generation, it literally means that we're supporting equipment of a variety of generations. So even if there's equipment that's out there that the vendor probably no longer supports because it's old, but it still happens to be out there in the network that our customers are still trying to support, we make sure that they still have connectivity to those devices, can still visualize the services that are there, provision them, and even help to decommission them, across the products that we help support them with.
Yeah, no small task all across the board.
No, not at all.
All right, well, thanks for that, Jim. So look, anybody who's been in this industry for not very long, right, but decades, we've wrestled with IP and optical integration for the whole time. And things go back at least to the 90s when I kind of first saw the first, packet over optical type solutions. What's been your experience? You've been in some interesting customer situations. Why do they stay ships in the night? What kind of progress are you making on that front?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you and I both go back to the 90s and have lived through, the dot-com era and into where we are today in the age of AI, if you will. But traditional layers of the network have run in individual silos, whether IP or optical. They had their own leadership. They had their own subject matter experts. They had their own budgets. And even the organizations that they work with, whether it happens to be standards bodies or just any type of organization, typically were very different. Folks would either be working with the IETF or the ITU or somebody else. So they were all very segmented and siloed. And what that really turned into was there's a whole slew of technologies and protocols that are still out there that were managed by the individual silos, whether they happen to be things like IP, Ethernet, ATM, frame relay, MPLS, SONET, SDH, DWDM, OTN, and the acronyms will continue to flow.
For sure.
Right. And then you also had most of the vendors, especially in the early days, we talked about like the 90s and even into the early 2000s, most of the vendors were very specialized as well. They only focused on, IP and Ethernet. Right? Or they only focused on optical. Throughout the years, we've had a lot of consolidation in the vendor environment where you've had a lot of these companies have, come together. And now you have, some larger organizations that have full portfolios that offer both IP and optical.
Right.
But in a lot of cases, the operators that are actually supporting that equipment are still, somewhat siloed, if you will. Right. But I think what we're winding up seeing now is with automation, you're starting to see some of those layers start to collapse, ever more.
You couldn't tee that up better. That's a big reason, why I wanted to talk to you. So, and not to play favorites, but some of those big vendors that we've seen acquire IP and optical, Cisco has obviously done that in waves, no pun intended, over the years, right? Nokia, obviously, and now with the addition of Infinera back in the portfolio, they're taking another run at that broader combined, plus the 5G play. That's another episode. But yeah, so there are big companies that we all have seen, deal with this and have their own tools. And now you come along with other tools where you can help customers actually use the infrastructure. Cool. What are some of the opportunities that you've seen for achieving automation, even seamless automation across layers? What's the low-hanging fruit for stitching things together with automation?
So I think the low-hanging fruit piece is the availability of APIs and being able to consume these APIs and all the feature functionality that goes along with it. I think as the vendors continue to consolidate, their portfolios become a little bit more full and inclusive of all the different layers. We're really trying to hope that they offer the ability for us to aggregate this information, cleanse the information, normalize all of this information, and basically be able to make it actionable. Right,
sure.
Across all the different layers. So we're hoping that the silos start to break down and they get deconstructed based on the availability of information at the given layers, from the individual systems. And for us, because we focus again, a big part of it is, multi-layer again. So whether it's pluggables that exist in a router, whether it happens to be Ethernet, whether it's DWDM, et cetera, or it's across the different vendors, again, what we want to be able to do is consume all of this information, be able to make it all actionable and really ease the burden of, running and deploying networks today. And one of the big things that we're really trying to focus on, again, multi-generationally, is that, you'll still be able to visualize and leverage the products that you already have within your network,
right, that
are still running services that you're still generating revenue from, while also supporting the current generation of equipment and basically preparing you, for the next generation of equipment to come.
And that's a real practical constraint, especially in optical. What kind of physical infrastructure refresh rates do you see with optical gear?
That's pretty interesting. I mean, so if you look at our portfolio, we have three pieces of the puzzle. One is Netflix, one is Neo, which is network inventory optimization, and one is Prism. For Netflix, the reason we leverage that one is that it talks directly to the individual devices via its native language. So if it talks TL1 or SNMP, it doesn't matter. We'll talk natively to that specifically.
Our listeners know SNMP. What's TL1?
So transaction language 1, it is the language that has predominantly been used to talk to SONET devices or TDM related, time domain multiplexed devices over the course of history, if you will. But yeah, I mean, and then what we'll do is we leverage Prism to communicate with network management systems via the APIs. And we can basically leverage any of the feature functionality that's available in the APIs via Prism. And that gives us the ability to stitch and glue together your legacy networks in conjunction with your current generation networks. And then we also have a software-enabled service called Network Inventory Optimization, or NEO, which can help you to decommission your legacy networks and roll your services over to your current generation networks. So the idea is we really understand that there are products that are out there for decades, at least in the telco environment, and as long as they're still generating revenue, and
they're not going to get decommissioned.
They're not going to decom them. So, we just are being very, very, practical about understanding the longevity and the product life cycle or service life cycle for our customer base.
You a couple minutes ago used the opportunity to highlight the use of APIs across different layers. Can you just give a concrete example of some service activation or something that an operator is going to do in a network that'll fire off API calls to both IP equipment and optical equipment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we have a couple of those. If one of you guys wants to hop in specifically on a given customer application.
Not to go real deep right now, but like make that concrete for make sure what Jim said is true.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even thinking about just staying with the layer 1 or layer 0 space, we got coherent optics and routers that are going to feed wavelengths into transport gear. So our Prism tool can talk TAPI to the next gen, open line systems.
And TAPI is
transport API. Yeah. And then Prism can also talk down to our Netflix system, which can talk directly to the routers and provision the optics, configure the wavelengths, things like that. So it'll orchestrate all of that together to be able to do, at least from a layer 1, layer 0 perspective, from the router across the transport network. And then we can take that one step further in the future to go towards layer 2 or layer 3.
Great example. Yeah, thank you very much. I know I threw that at you out of order, so well played. So let's talk about some of those real world automation examples and the different roles that you interact with. Like we've talked as we planned for this conversation. You have operations people, you have engineering personas, you have planner personas. How do you think about what your end users look like and how they use and consume different automations?
Yeah, and so historically, like you mentioned, I mean, the vendors will build individual tools for their individual systems, and they're built by engineers for engineers. So they've got a million screens, and they got a million little knobs that you can turn and things you can adjust and to do everything that's possible. But most customers don't do all of that. It's impossible to automate to all those individual EMSs as well because there wasn't APIs, for example, or if they were there, then you had to API to vendor A, vendor B, vendor C, vendor D, and then every time they upgraded, something changed. So by rolling all those things together into one system, we can then carve out specific tasks that we want to expose features for, like the maintenance team or the provisioning team. Here's the screens that you need to see all the light levels or all the alarms on the path of a circuit in the same view, even if it's multi-vendor, or in the provisioning or planning space. They don't care about alarms and PM. They want to see, what's my capacity look like? Where can I put more services up? How can I reconfigure services to free up more spectrum? Things like that. So we're building very focused, almost like solving specific use case kind of modules to attack each one of those customer environments.
The planning for spectrum and how you're using it, like that's one of these virtualized concepts over physical infrastructure that, again, most folks in the IP world don't really haven't really had to deal with. Is it simple enough to think of like waves as VLANs? Is there an analogy there? Yeah.
Yeah. So the planning in the IP space seems, I'm air quoting, easier because you're going virtually from box to box throughout the network. So you don't know if that box is a mile away or 10,000 miles away. You just know that you need to hit that next spot.
Don't care. If I can ping it, it doesn't matter.
If I can ping it, that's right. Exactly right. So in the optical space...
I'm spoiled. I know.
In the optical space, you have to take all that distance into consideration. You have to do the characterization of the fiber. You have to regen signals, things like that. So there's a lot more that goes into the planning of optical waves or just the network itself to understand if you can get that far and then how many hops it's going to take along the way to be able to get there. Again, talking about automation, a lot of the newer network elements have OTDRs built directly into them. So I can ask it, how far does this fiber go? How good is the fiber? What's the feedback or the reflection loss, all those kind of things that are in the path. Combine that with the real-time data that we're already collecting from the network, and then feed that into a planning tool and start to be able to plan in an automated fashion multi-vendor wavelengths. And again, I use that IP over DWDM example. It's been really hard to roll out for a lot of operators because all these different pieces that sit in all these different systems or their offline systems, getting that data directly from the network is going to allow us to build tools to do that automation in a multi-vendor way for the next generation of networks.
Can you just zoom in a little bit on what is an OTDR, what does it do, and why do you need it?
Yeah, an OTDR stands for Optical Time Domain Reflectometer. And basically it shoots a light path down a fiber to say, how good is my signal? Because it's going to bounce at the end and bounce back to you. It's going to know how far that signal goes, how the quality of the fiber is, and give you those data points that you can decide whether you could do an 800 gig wavelength or only a 400 gig wavelength or maybe only a 100 gig wavelength, because there's a lot of old fiber out there. There's a lot of new fiber out there. And then distance is a big part of, how far those signals will go.
And so, I think this all goes to the point that the optical network planner has a lot of things that they need to keep track of and understand. We don't want to minimize what IP network planning looks like. They have their challenges too.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Yeah, they're very different.
And I would love you to react to this. One of the ways I've always thought about IP versus optical, the IP folks deal more in abstractions and have more affinity to being like computer science people from I'm jetting up a config for a router or a firewall, right? But in optical planning, you need more than basic understanding of physics and probably some real EE type concepts. That's not like hard and fast separation, but if I were to overgeneralize, that's kind of how I see the two groups.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to consider is that, especially in the IP domain, especially if you look at like, routing and things like that, it's more logical. When you start looking at, optical, it's far more physical. And a great example of that is when you start looking as an optical planner, if you want to make sure that you have, diverse paths, it's literally physically diverse paths. You want to make sure that there's no common manholes, there's no common, routes, things along those lines. You go one layer up, like you're saying, from an abstracted point of view. And if you look at like how routers are designed, in the way in which they, configure different connections, you can have a fully meshed, routed network. But underneath that, some of the connections may actually flow over the same physical paths.
Yeah.
And you might not find that out if you don't coordinate between your IP and your optical layers until you wind up having a fiber cut and you realize that you thought one path should have went down, but multiple routed paths had gone down because of that abstraction between the logical and the physical. And that's really important. And we're trying to be able to, provide tooling that can glue that together to make sure that the planners and the operations teams and the maintenance teams fully understand, from throughout all the layers, what's actually happening within the network and coupling the logical to the physical.
I'll give you a perfect example of that. I landed at Bell Atlantic in 1996, and we had T1s everywhere for the internal network. So I was part of the IT network where we got a lot of secondhand circuits from the telco. And one of my first projects was a single point of failure analysis. Like we had MLPP bundles of 12 T1s. And we thought, well, there must be some physical path diversity baked into those. Guess what? All 12 of those T1s were in the same infrastructure coming into the building or the campus in more than one spot, right? And having that took a lot of detailed analysis. We didn't have any of the tooling you're talking about to actually go and figure that out. So I would have benefited from that 30 years ago. Where were you? But let's pivot now to the topic everybody's talking about, AI in everything that we do. And, I'm not trying to be flippant here. It's real, and it's really impacting how end users are doing NetOps, but it's impacting some of the ways you are building tools and how you think about tooling. So let's start there. What perspectives do you have for AI in optical network operations? What are you doing? What are you playing with?
Yeah, I think we're in a really unique position, being a software house, but then also having a huge services side and having a great active customer base. I want to touch about how we build tools and what those tools actually look like for our customers. So we have done a really great job of aggregating a lot of data from a lot of different sources, right? Like multi-generations, multi-vendor. But incorporating that into AI requires very, very thoughtful design to how we pipeline that data to an LLM or to an AI agent, right? So in the past, you would have that information in 3 applications, 7 screens, 18 filters you need to set. You need to reload twice. If you reload 3 times, it doesn't work. That's frustrating, right? And it takes time away from people who are, trying to make a difference. We can use AI to reduce some of that, right? If you have really well designed and thought through data pipelines, your question of, why is this alarm out of 3 million that I'm getting a day that's saying I have contamination on this port and it's causing me a bunch of issues on a bunch of provision services? That question of what's wrong, where is it, what do I need to do, and what's affected? It's 4 or 5 questions, might be 7 screens, might be 2 applications. It's 1 question, 1 report that the AI takes care for you. Even if we in our software suite don't have a pre-built screen to deliver that insight, the power of AI is such that it can stitch the data together for you, provided the right data pipelines. And so instead of you having to learn how to use the tools, it's kind of learning how to help you. And if you do put together all of those right pieces and the stars align, I think you really do a great job of avoiding some of that slop, some of that take something off the shelf and just jam it in, see if it works. On the feature development side, right, being a software house, we've tried to roll out as many internal AI accelerants as possible, whether that's an AI chat, right? Question answer, iterative refinement. For someone like me, that's huge, right? I'm a younger engineer. I'm new to telco. I have tons of questions, right? All the acronyms you guys are saying, that's something I got to pick up. Having access to an AI tool, an AI teacher is massive. And code gen, right? The big, really hot thing right now. We've been experimenting with Claude Code. And both of those tools are huge accelerants, so we can spend more time thinking and planning and designing and less time in the minutia, in the implementation.
Yep. I think just to add on to that, one great example on a feature development side of things is we made a feature called spectrum utilization to optimize spectrum in your network. The feature was 100% derived by humans, the idea, the fundamental logic, and the architecture, but 100% of the code was developed by AI. So what we saw was AI was doing the tedious, boring tasks of filling in boilerplate functions, whereas humans were figuring out how does the logic actually work, how do we add value to our customers. And this extra focus on the business logic allowed us to develop the feature in much shorter order and deliver value to our customers much faster. On the flip side, we've also seen AI excel at understanding large, complex code bases. So not a new feature, but also existing code that's been around for 20 plus years. It's helped us to onboard new engineers faster, to understand code that people who wrote are retired or no longer here.
So what does that look like if I'm onboarding a new engineer? Maybe you can speak to that from experience. Like, how did you use that tooling to say, explain this 22-year-old code fragment to me?
Yeah, 100%. I actually had the pleasure of being an intern here before I started full time. And when I was an intern, a lot of the AI tools were a lot more primitive. And I remember my first ever ticket I got sent to like 10,000 line file, and the function I had to edit, I had to make 2 or 3 edits, but the function I had to edit had like 47 arguments, 3 or 4 pointers deep in C code.
Right.
I think it was get 1830 PSS routes.
Oh, right.
I didn't even know what an 1830 was. I didn't know what PSS stood for.
I do know the 1830, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know what routes we were getting or where we were getting them from. All of those questions were questions that I needed to ask people for help for. But before I could even ask questions, I needed to know what I was even going to ask about.
Sure.
Right? And it ended up being a lot of like spray and pray, just get as much information in my head as possible. Having returned and worked on similar problems, having an AI tool where if I have a TL1 problem, if I'm looking at logs, I can upload the 6500 TL1 guide, and I can ask questions of like, hey, I see this command. Like, can you explain what's happening? And even if I don't understand the dictionary definition or the exact definition in the book, all right, can you explain it to me in more simple terms? Can you make an analogy? Can you make me a metaphor? All of those things help me be more effective in interacting with things that I've never seen before.
That's awesome. And just like a shout out to internship programs. I was an RIT undergrad where you have co-op. It's institutionalized. Are you an RIT grad?
I'm an RIT grad.
Go Tigers. GO, not GEAUX. The other Tigers.
It's a big difference. It's a big difference.
But like co-op was huge for me. And so way to go, Light River, right? More interns, more co-ops. Dan, you look like you had something you wanted to add on to that.
Definitely. I mean, from the RIT co-op perspective, really quick, I think what we've done at Light River, I was one of the first co-ops here.
Oh, very cool.
And over the last 7 years, we've built up, I think we've patted our average age down significantly through the co-op program. And, you know,
what are you saying, Dan?
I think he just called us old.
I think that's what I heard.
I'm super passionate about AI. I'm super passionate about everything we do, but I'm also super passionate about helping the younger generation. And I strongly believe all these AI tools are only helping people like Shivam and other co-ops who are coming in be able to make a difference early on.
So one of the things I'm going to add, because I think we almost glossed over it just a little bit, which is important to touch upon. Historically, somebody would push out, a product or a new version of code, and the human had to be trained on how to use it. Right. The flip is happening now, whereby the system is there, and as you're prompting the system is learning from the human and then creating or auto-creating new features on the fly based on the human behavioral analysis.
Wow.
So the machines are learning from the humans now. It's not the humans that have to be trained on the machines.
Right.
And we are making that jump as we speak right now, and it's embedded in the systems today. If you guys want to talk more about that.
Sure. I'll take it. So what's awesome, right, is let's say, we talked a little bit about user profiles in our system. So we understand what kind of user you are. What do you care about in your network?
So what user, talk about, like, how do you think about your users? What profiles, like, are there 3? Are there 22? Just decode that a little bit for us quickly.
Yeah, really quickly. I mean, we have executive profiles, we have planners, we have operations, finance, and all these different groups have different concerns when they go into their tools. Yep. An engineer needs to see every piece of information about a piece of equipment in
That's
the network.
Right. I want it all.
They need control.
Yeah.
An executive wants to see nice charts and lines, and how does this, what's the big picture?
What is this saying? What is it? Don't bother me with the details. Yeah.
They want to see a checkbox or an X and know who to talk to next.
Yep.
On the network planning side, we have tools like spectrum optimization that we talked about, which will help you figure out, how do I keep growing my network? How do I modernize things that have been around for a long time? And what's really great about, building this from the ground up is we've been able to incorporate user profiles into the AI so that, an executive comes in, we know who you are, we know what you care about. And instead of you even having to ask a question to generate the same report that you generate every month, the first Friday at 9 p.m., we could just generate that report for you on the fly.
On the engineering side, I think we mirror that too. 2025 is the year of agents. And one of the fantastic things is agents are more powerful when they have really well-defined, well-scoped domains. And, as you would have it, it kind of aligns perfectly with what a role is.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it's more
That's
granular.
Great. I had never thought of that tie. Yeah, that's perfect.
It might be more granular than the role a provisioner has. There might be 5 or 6 sub-roles incorporated within that. But thinking of it as these agents are sort of little guys, each of them has their own piece of the puzzle that they're bringing to it, helps us build really powerful multi-agent orchestration and accomplish tasks that even as an AI engineer, I thought were incredible that we can do without any human intervention.
In any of this progression, have you ever felt threatened that like all this cool new tooling is really going to diminish my job? Like, have you ever, been up at 3 a.m. worried about that? Any of you? Like, I don't want. Yeah.
I've never felt more empowered as an engineer and also just as a leader. I think that these tools allow engineers to focus on what really makes them happy, solving hard problems. That's not going away. AI will be able to assist with that. But I think there's going to be plenty more opportunities to focus on, automating new things in the network, building new feature functionality, getting onboarded quicker. And let's face it, there's a lot of legacy code out there in this world, from banks to, optical networking. And a lot of the people who wrote that code are retiring. I touched on that earlier. And the newer generation doesn't understand it. So these tools are just going to empower people to keep building, and sort of empower the next generation to build on top of what was already there.
Ken, I saw you light
I'd
up.
like to add something about the system engineering role, right? Way back when, you couldn't write a piece of code unless you had this huge document of requirements detailing every, crossing every T, dotting every I. And then we saw a trend where, you didn't really need that much. People just started coding and, requirements took a back seat. Well, now I think we're turning full circle because, unless you write detailed specs for your AI engine, it may start hallucinating or it may produce not what you want. So I think that's a great, exciting time for, the engineering role.
For sure. You and I think you mentioned Claude Code specifically. So you're just using the open public tooling for code analysis, code development, or you have your own internal tools for that?
Let me tell you a bit more about Meter, the sponsor for this episode of Total Network Operations. Businesses are frustrated with legacy providers' inflexible pricing, IT resource and staffing constraints, complex deployments, and fragmented tools. Meter's single integrated networking stack is reimagining what it means for businesses to get and stay online. Meter's full stack solution is designed to give you deep control and visibility, and it covers everything from first site survey to ongoing support, giving you a single partner for all your connectivity needs. They're really taking a holistic approach to delivering fast, secure, and scalable connectivity without the complexity of managing multiple providers or tools. I've seen it up close and I've had a chance to try it out, and you can check it out for yourself. Go to meter.com/TNOps and book a demo now. That's meter.com/TNOPS to book a demo. I highly recommend it. I think you'll be really impressed. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring this episode, and now back to the show.
We have both, right? So for super proprietary data that we don't want to touch anything, we have that locked down. We have
Not
run
just
our own
proprietary,
LLMs.
super proprietary.
Super proprietary, mission critical data. But through Claude Code, we found a lot of success in, the tool is very powerful in itself. If you think about it, it can create new things. So the possibilities are endless. It understands how to interact with your terminal. The problem is, right, it doesn't have all the context that you have as a human. You have a lot of information and you make the assumption that the AI tool has some of the same fundamental knowledge. However, we found great success in supplementing Claude Code and similar agentic coding tools with, a lot of knowledge base, our specific intentions, you can even build agents within Claude Code that are specialized on different parts of our code base. This feature just came out 3 weeks ago. I think figuring out how to keep AI on a leash and target it to a specific task is what makes it so great. And people get their hopes up when they try a simple one-sentence prompt to build spectrum optimization, and you get AI slop as a result.
Right. There's another comment down there.
Oh, I was going to reference it from a product perspective, kind of building off what Ken is saying. We'd have to sit with customers before and ask what details in a report do you want? What different columns do you want in the report, and then give that to development. Well, all that data already exists now in all of our database. So rather than worrying about how to put the screen together, we're just making sure the data's there. And then the question to the AI just says, hey, I need to know the wavelengths that are in Detroit that are in alarm. And it can search its databases and put that report together for you on the fly. I mean, that's a real life scenario that we have today. Yeah.
And you can some of those tools, the AI powered tools, do really good at formatting. And, instead of me having to figure out what columns and rows should look like. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the really fantastic things, as Tim sort of alluded to, is AI in the workplace has sort of upended a lot of traditional power dynamics. I think, especially if you look more broadly across organizations, there's a ton of people that have decades of domain knowledge, industry knowledge. They have thoughts of, if I could just make my computer do this, my life would be so much easier.
Sure.
Right. And I think being a young engineer, traditionally that would turn into, I get a really vague spec of like, I want it to look kind of like this and do this. And, I'd spend a bunch of time trying to figure it out and deliver that.
Right.
Now, I think there's a very unique opportunity where even I, as a young engineer, can enable them to engineer things themselves. Right. can I build or deploy a chatbot that helps you iterate on your project and iterate on your idea, deploy it yourself? Can I help deliver like Claude Code? And can I help enable or build material that helps really experienced engineers, people with far more knowledge and experience than I do, help deliver their own ideas? I think that that's something that most young engineers have never had the privilege of doing or have never had an opportunity to do. And I think that AI is very unique in being able to provide opportunities for people with less experience to enable people with more experience.
All great things to think about, for sure.
Not just engineers themselves.
Right.
Other people, other employees can use these tools to make their own tools to help them perform their tasks.
Feels like you've got a specific example. Like,
Well, like just last week, actually, we had a different employee in the services division.
Mhm.
He had to create a bunch of routes for somebody. I don't remember the exact client and stuff.
Sure.
But rather than, which was again managing a bunch of spreadsheets, they said it would take 45 minutes to provision to plan a single route. He built a tool, and they said it was going to be like 3,000 hours worth of time. He spent 60 hours going through multiple AIs before he found the one that actually worked, and created this whole tool, this whole platform, and was able to do it all, like save thousands of hours just himself.
That's, and companies are going to start tracking those ROI metrics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's really important. You can hang on to the mic because I want to hit on QA stuff here too.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So that is your role in the org, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Keeping everybody here honest, right?
Yeah, 100%, including the AI.
That's right. So, all right. So talk about both. How has that helped you with, code that you're responsible for checking, and having to put the right guardrails on the AI tools that you're using?
Yeah, so it makes it a lot easier for writing automated scripts and script maintenance.
Right.
That's what AI is really good at.
And what do you typically script in? What are you using?
Well, it's Playwright.
Okay.
Everybody's Playwright nowadays.
Depends on what domain you're in. But
yeah,
sure.
okay. Yeah, no, for what I'm doing, yeah. But I think at the end of the day, there still has to be a person that says, yes, this works. And nobody's going to trust the AI to say, yeah, it works. Because the thing is, the AI, you tell the AI to go get a number out of a database. Cool, it can do that. And put it in the front end under this header. Great. Is that the actual number people want? Is that the real title you want to give it? Like whoever put in the ticket, were they specific enough in what they wanted? So there always is going to be someone that has to say, yes, that's the correct thing to do.
And it has to be a human right now.
Right now, it has to be a human. Yeah, yeah. So I think just speaking to like the jobs and stuff, I think a lot of junior QA is going to go away because it's a lot of the tedious tasks, a lot of the repetitive stuff that AI can just do. But I think there's always going to be a need for one person to be in charge of the actual. And I always take a holistic view of the whole platform. Like it's not just specifically, like finding this number, make sure it's the right number from the database, that kind of thing.
Right.
But the actual like quality of the entire product. I mean, these guys will say I jump in on things all the time that typically aren't QA purview, but like AI just doesn't do that right now. So, but yeah, all the minor tedious tasks, the script writing, all that stuff is AI.
And you referenced like keeping the AI tools in check. Like, are there specific things that you do or that you routinely have to do to make sure you're getting what you need?
Yeah, and it's harder to test with AI or to test the output of AI because you can ask the same question twice and you get two different answers that are both correct. But it's not like you can just say, "Oh, I'm expecting this exact text to come back."
Kind of like people.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an interesting time because you have to kind of modify your behavior and pay more attention to what the AI spits out to actually know that it's right, because you can't just write a test against it all the time.
So adult supervision, right?
Yeah.
It's still required.
Still required. Yeah.
Jim's got a comment.
I mean, I think there's the idea of knowing what the goal of your system happens to be, or what the definition of a given feature happens to be, or having acceptance criteria for what a feature is supposed to be able to deliver, don't really go away, right? The human is still there to be able to do that. However, I'll defer to Dan, but like we do have systems here as well, where it's like as we do development, the idea of test-driven development has come back, and basically you can force the machines to basically iterate on something until the acceptance criteria happens to be met. And as we build out these systems, there's lots of checkpoints, lots of iteration, and the machines can just keep running as long as they have to make sure that the acceptance criteria are met. And we have great examples of stuff like that if you want to add some more color commentary.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to Travis's point, the AI still will try to fake test cases here and there and tell you that something worked because it got lazy and tired and it wanted you to move on. But the latest generations of models don't have that issue as often. They called it reward hacking, right? Where to make a test case pass, an AI system might generate just return true or just success, right? The latest generation of models don't have that problem as much. And what used to be very tedious for human engineers to write and maintain was test-driven development, right? Do you really need 90% of your code to be tested when, the hard part of that is the maintenance of those test cases that you build in the future. Now with AI, the question isn't, it's not maintaining those test cases because the human doesn't have to read them anymore. It could be the AI. So we found great success in generating a lot of test cases, probably an excessive amount, having the AI validate them. If it finds bugs, continue looping with no human intervention. And then only after the AI decides it's done does a human have to go in and make sure it actually works. And I think that gets us about 90+% of the way there. The rest is on the engineer to go validate the feature that it works the way they want. And for Travis or QA to make sure it feels right, it works right, and we didn't miss anything as an engineer.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff, especially like front end development, it's hard to automate the testing of that, to make sure it feels good, like a scroll bar, to make sure that it's not like jumping when you're scrolling down a report. that just feels bad for the user. And that's something that's hard to get the AI to have kind of a comfort level check,
Did all the initiatives you're talking about here for your internal development, did it just kind of start organically? Was there a corporate initiative, combination of the two?
I think it's a combination of the two. Happy to take this. I've personally been invested in AI since, I guess 2020, 2021, ChatGPT, and found that some of our work in making all the data look the same in the network was very useful for AI tools because we already had that clean, standardized data.
Yep.
I've been pitching for years that, clean data is the way to make AI work well.
Yeah.
We already had that. So, it's been a process. I think it's taken a little longer than most people thought. But this year, I really feel like we're here, at least for AI-assisted development. I don't think the future is tomorrow. I think it's right now.
Yeah.
And, we're seeing continued adoption throughout the company without having to force people to use AI because they've all come to that same realization. Almost everyone's had that eye-opening experience where you open ChatGPT or you open Claude or Gemini, and it just feels great. It just works exactly the way you want it to.
Wow.
And you become a believer. A lot of us were skeptics at first, myself included.
Okay.
How smart could token generation be? But as Travis pointed out earlier, we had someone on the services side who had very limited software background provide real business value using AI. And I think we're continuing to see cases like that.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, I mean, we definitely have individuals who are out there, striving to leverage AI to achieve results at much greater velocity.
Sure.
But other things that we are doing to encourage everyone to kind of participate is hosting hackathons, asking people to build a unique feature and basically demo it to the team, and only do that leveraging AI.
Sure.
So it's actively encouraged here, I'd say corporately, but it's also on the individual developers to basically be able to deliver, right? So it's kind of a combination of both, and we're just hoping that we get more and more folks involved using this on a day-to-day basis, because we do believe that this is the future of development and how things do play out. We want to make sure that everybody here is growing as individuals and developers, and we keep delivering value to market.
I definitely get the sense of that. And I haven't done a deep study of the inner workings of Light River, but I will tell listeners it's been super fun working with these guys and planning for this. I believe everything Jim just said. So
AI is not going away.
Yeah. But on quality metrics, this might be an unfair question, and I realize if it's out of scope, don't sweat it.
Okay.
Blake, are you seeing measurable increases in quality?
From model to model?
Correct. Or just time in your implementation. Yeah. So talk to that if you can.
Yeah. When Shivam started developing our AI support chat, just to tell you how to do things in the system, not really give you answers. But that was the start of the whole thing. You could get it off track real easy. It didn't know. I mean, we fed it all the docs we had. It would still not find the simple answer. And then, one day Shivam would just say, "Oh, I implemented the new model, test it out." And I'd be like, "Yeah, now it makes way more sense. Now it's giving answers." And I think recently, it was last month or two, whatever model we switched to was like, this is it. Like in just a few months, it went from not really knowing what it's talking about to, holy crap, this is exactly what it is every time.
I think what's huge in that is we have a really strong desire within like the AI team to get in the guts of how everything works, right? Just dive as deep as possible. I was involved in like AI research in college, and I've always been super passionate about the field. I think that really gives us an advantage, or it gives us a motivation to deliver fantastic tooling. To the point Travis is talking about, my initial implementation of like, let's be able to answer user questions in the actual responses rather than deferring to some citation or deferring to like the UI. It was not good.
Yeah.
Frankly, it just wasn't.
Wow.
Right. But in trying to make it better, both more accurate and feel better, because so much of this is qualitative, we started deploying like industry observability tools, right? I worked with Nick to deploy a tool called MLflow, which is something that, you know, a ton of AI labs, frontier labs, large organizations are using to understand how their LLM-driven tools are working, right? Understand how their agents are communicating with each other. And being able to do that, having the passion and the desire and the motivation to bring what's out on the frontier to telco helped us deliver something that was much more refined. And we made a lot of engineering decisions based on what we were seeing from that data to make things more useful, feel better, deliver more value. I think in a similar vein, there's a perspective that pervades telco that if you want security, you have to be a couple steps behind. And we're pushing against that, right? We have an AI lab here, you know, right down the hallway. We have 2 GPUs that we test on all the time. We've tested models that are released this year. We've tested models that came out a few days ago. I don't know if you followed the GPT OSS release.
Yep.
But got it spinning up on the lab, tested it, see if it integrates with our software nicely. There were some road bumps. But, you know, I'm a firm believer that you can be in an air-gapped environment. You don't need an internet connection, and you deserve to have the best and the brightest models on your deployment, right? And security is huge for us. We don't want to compromise the quality of the experience just for security. And on the vein of security, I think Nick might have
we were going there. Nick is the puck, and we're skating to him right now.
Yeah, here I am. Yeah, and to Shivam's point, exactly. You know, like in the optical niche itself, obviously we have customers who are handling really, really confidential data, and we take that very, very seriously. So as a result, everything we do, we want to make sure that we can deploy it in a way that our customer actually wants it to be deployed, whether that's in the cloud, whether it's on premise, or whether it's air gapped, right? These are all situations that we plan for and we kind of expect, because we acknowledge and respect that, you know, this is a really, really important part of the network. This is really confidential and, you know, super deep in the weeds stuff, right, that we want to handle properly. And like to Jim's point, like a lot of the pervading idea is that you can't have the best while having, you know, a really secure network, which I think is just not the case. You know, I think for the longest time, people had the idea that, oh, like something like AI, you have to go to the cloud to do. You have to go to a ChatGPT and an Anthropic. You have to go somewhere else to do that. But we've been, you know, working with the GPUs in-house. They work totally fine. We're able to kind of ship and bundle up a box that has everything a customer needs without making the compromises associated with what most people see as the compromises for security, you know.
How deeply do you get involved in model training for your applications? Is that on your shoulders, or are there other folks that do that?
We do a lot of experimentation on that side of the equation. We haven't rolled out anything fine-tuned yet, but we've done experimentation for like document embedding. So much of optical networking is so niche, right? To a layperson, which, you know, the traditional off-the-shelf model is a layperson, figuratively, right? It's a college freshman. Knows kind of a lot of stuff, but doesn't know anything super well. You end up with collisions of the encoded, like the vectors that are coming out of your encoding model, right? If it thinks everything is similar, it has no idea that like CWDM and DWDM are different. I barely know that they're different.
But you do know now that they're different, right?
Yes,
They're at least different acronyms.
Right, exactly. So we use fine-tuning, right? domain adaptive fine tuning to be able to get more representation of those niche differences. And we sacrifice, it might not know the difference between like Chaperone and Ariana Grande, but that's not really important for optical networking, right?
I would argue that it's not. Well, never mind.
We do a little bit of small scale experimenting on that front, but most of what we're doing really is engineering on the usage side of these tools. It's designing agents really intelligently. It's designing data flows really intelligently. It's, do we make this process a one-step or two-step? Do we make it multi-agent or single agent? How do we divide responsibilities between agents? On the purely engineering side, right? Do we enable like prefix caching, or how large do we have a key value cache in our inference setup, right? Like the really nitty gritty engineering questions of how are you getting the tokens out of these models? All of that stuff is something where if you get it wrong, it takes 30 minutes for you to get an answer, and it's wrong. It's gibberish.
Wow.
And
it's wrong with confidence.
So am I sometimes. But if it's right and it's fast, it just feels like magic. And I think being very passionate about the engineering and being deliberate about the engineering choices that we make and being thoughtful about that really helps us deliver something that feels magical.
I mean, one of the interesting things, and I'll have Nick comment on a little bit more, but we know we have a commitment to our customers and our customers' customers to make sure that what they're doing is secure, right? That we're not leaking information, that we're containing the information. And the idea behind it for us is to make sure that we are like at that intersection of innovation, kind of like what Shiven's kind of alluding to now, and security, right? Where we can deploy in isolated environments, we can deploy on operating systems that have compliance to like the security technical implementation guides that are delivered by like the DoD, right?
That's a STIG for people who have never understood what STIG meant before.
Yeah. Those are security technical implementation guides. And, for us, we're making sure that we're deploying on the right hardware, on the right operating system, and we're deploying our software, and it's in a hardened environment, right? But we also have the ability to deliver really innovative feature functionality at the same time in a very compliant way. And, Nick's being a little bit humble, but he's done a lot of work, along those lines.
No pressure, Nick. What else to add?
Not too much, but to Jim's point, exactly, right? Like the carriers that have all these networks across the globe have all kinds of regulatory requirements, and we're, ready, willing, and able to meet those. And for us, that's something we kind of factor in as a day one thing of like, okay, great, we can ship all these features, we have all these awesome applications, but like how can we actually ship it to someone in a way that's secure and also fits in with their current security framework? So that obviously takes the form in STIGs. We have a lot of work we've done in terms of like observability with Shivim and the devs to make sure we have all the data that we need, that we're alerting on incidents as they come in, not only obviously for the customer, but for ourselves internally. So it's really important to make sure everyone has their eyes on the data that we're processing, the applications and how they run. And that's just kind of part of the bigger security picture.
There's so much more we could talk about. There's one last thing I want to kind of tie some themes together with. You talk about interaction with your customers a lot, and that's super healthy. Like, I think that's a really good thing. If you were to, if you had some of your most important customers in this room, what would you tell them about, like, here's what we need to know from you. Here are good ways to really communicate what you need to us. If you could coach them, hey, this will help. This will really help us prioritize your features. Things like that. What would you tell them?
Most of it in recent conversations has boiled down to specific use cases. Like, don't just come and say, oh, I'm going to buy this piece of software. Well, what do you actually want it to do? What feature or what issue are you actually trying to solve? What process are you trying to automate?
Yeah.
That's what we've, over the past year and a half, really focused on that and had a lot of success. We talked about spectrum optimization a couple times. We were sitting with a planning team that was going through the many, many, many steps that they went through to plan out wavelengths. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, well, I've got that data. I got that data. I already have that data. I just need to string that together and put it together in one simplified view, one screen. Again, I like to air quote the easy part. Getting the data is the hard part.
Right.
And then even using Claude AI to push those things together to create what that output looks like. That's what we found most successful in the past couple of years working with the customers.
What else? Any other anecdotal like for those of you who are not customer facing, like this is one of the special things we can do here today. You know, they keep you all on the right-hand side of the table, largely here in Homedale, right? If you could really benefit from customer interaction, like what are you looking for out of hearing from your customers?
I'll hop in real quick. I mean, I think I'll take the human element on this one, right? You know, we know that our customers have a lot of demand for their time. Somebody always wants a meeting. There's only so much time in the day, and you have like your real work to do outside of taking the meetings. I think the important part that we're looking at right now, and we've been, you know, super, you know, fortunate that our customers allow us to consume, call it an hour of their time once a month to give them sort of a demo where they're going with the features that they have prioritized for us, that they want feedback on. And the more interaction we get with them, the more feedback we get, the more iterative the process becomes. And it makes it easier for them to actually get what they want. So the more they reject meetings, if you will, right, the longer it becomes between seeing what you asked for and the progress that's being made, which means, you know, you may have further to go because we have to backtrack even more. But when you have these, you know, touch points that are very often, if you will, for very key customers that have very high priorities for what they're looking for us, that constant contact and constant feedback ensures that they get exactly what they're asking for when they want it without slippage, right? Lots of times features may slip or products may slip because you didn't deliver what you wanted when you wanted to deliver it because there's just too much time.
Because he stopped it. He wouldn't let it go.
No, Travis doesn't stop it. But, you know, I think it's, you know, getting in front of and having good relationships, you know, with your customers and being able to get that constant contact and feedback to deliver on time, I think just reinforces a good relationship and gets things done.
Yeah, agreed.
And a lot of times we've noticed customers ask for one thing, but they really need another thing. Or during those sprint demo sessions, and Dan's been in many of those where we're picking up other tidbits that we could add in during that iterative process that wasn't part of the initial ask. That's really huge, and getting the value to the customer and the actual users that are going to be using it.
Really understanding, right? I mean, no, customers always know what they want. And they always state it, you know, and I've been on the customer side and I've been on the vendor side, right? And sometimes it's tricky, right? So
I think I might have a unique perspective on this as the least customer-facing person here. In my mind, the customer is a amorphous thing, really. I think I would rather just understand sort of how they plan to use these things more day to day. Like, what are your usage patterns? What are your habits? What are your creature comforts? What makes you comfortable using the types of tools that I want to build, right? Like, I think that sort of thing of the little details of what makes people comfortable, what makes people like the tools that they're using, for me as an engineer, it would be huge, right? It might not be the sexiest thing. It might not be $1 million thing, but for me personally, I would love to have a better understanding of what the customer likes.
You don't have the biases, right? You have that more fresh perspective of you don't know what the boundaries are, right? Sometimes that might turn into a stupid question, but I'm a big believer in you have to allow the stupid questions. Because if I make it onerous or I make anybody nervous about asking questions, like this is from scars and trauma that I have 25 years ago as a support engineer, you know, with the more senior engineers that were ready to slap you down because you didn't read the fine manual or read the fantastic manual first.
TFM.
Yes. You got to create an environment that it's okay to ask all those questions.
I think here too, we actually do a good job of putting the engineers in front of the clients. We actually talk like directly. We eliminate a lot of the bureaucracy in between the customers and the engineers themselves.
Right.
Like Dan's been on a lot of meetings, as Tim was saying. I think Shivam's been on a meeting with clients. I think you have. I don't know. Anyways, a lot of our engineers actually get on the calls with the clients to hear it directly from them. And I think that really helps. So it's not filtered through a bunch of different people's perspectives.
Like through SEs and account managers.
Those are great and valuable because that's the
yeah.
day-to-day interaction, you know? Yeah. But when we're showing off new features or discussing new implementations, like it's great to have the engineer in the room, even if just listening and monitoring to pick up, you know, what they can.
Agreed. That's awesome. So here's the last fun question. So this is the question I throw at everybody at the end of the show. It's more for network operators. You're in a different position, so you may have wide berth to maybe answer this differently. But you do this long enough, you've caused an outage. And if there's anybody in here who would like to own up to the most interesting outage they've ever caused, might not be Light River connected or not, or you could answer it in, I saw this outage that was really interesting. You don't have to take any personal responsibility, but who wants to take a stab at that?
Well, I've got a bunch of stories that I can tell as being tech support for a tier one. So, this dates way back to probably early 2000s. We're talking DS3s and Sonnet boxes, but
Right.
we're on the phone with the central office technician and we're troubleshooting like port 2 that's in an alarm. And we're talking him through, checking it at the DSX and this and that. We switch the card to protect and the line goes dead. The guy's gone. Both cards start reporting fail. I start getting reports of operator services being down. The trunks are now blocking voice calls out of the switches. And I can see the guy logging in locally and frantically pulling cards out of other slots that are protect, yanking those cards out that have failed and putting new ones, different ones in to get the service back up. And then he calls back and he's like, well, I guess both of those cards are failed now because there was a total silent failure. There was no other alarms in the box at all. It should not have failed. So, we technically, I guess, caused that outage because we switched the card to protect while we're trying to troubleshoot another service on that card. But those things just happen. There's many other stories like that I could probably tell from those days.
We'll do a follow-up on other eloquent disasters.
Yes.
But look, it's just been incredible being able to sit down with you all. Jim, is there anything big that we missed that you want to talk to, or anything that we should as we wrap up here?
No, I don't think there's anything big. I really enjoyed this particular session. I like the idea of allowing your viewers and yourself to come in and see an entire development team, and the way in which we structure ourselves, the way in which we build product, for your target customers, right? And the viewers here. We'd love to get feedback from anybody or chat with anybody that would like to talk to us about what issues they may have, what they would like to see, and how we can help them.
Awesome. We'll make sure we get the right feedback links in the show notes that people can do that. Well, look, thanks so much for being with us today on Total Network Operations. We'll find another way to do some kind of interesting follow-up here. And thanks everyone for listening to Total Network Operations. We'd also love your feedback on what you heard today and how we did this. You can hit me on LinkedIn via DM or go to packetpushers.net/follow-up and provide any feedback you can. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time on Total Network Operations.